America's Wild West. Let's get into it. Joining me now live from Geelong in Victoria is the newly elevated Shadow Communications Minister, Sarah Henderson. Sarah, thanks for joining us. Congratulations on your elevation to the Shadow Ministry. You're a former ABC reporter. Now, one of your responsibilities will be to look at the ABC.
Well, absolutely, and great to join you, Chris. I work for the ABC. I work for National Indigenous TV, as well as Channel 7, 9 and 10. So I've had very broad experience in the media. I've also worked as a media lawyer. So I'll bring to the job a fresh set of eyes, and I'm really thrilled and looking forward to being part of Peter Dutton's new and refreshed Shadow Cabinet. Well,
that's a fantastic background to be taking on those challenges. I'll come back to those in a moment. But the issue of the day, of course, is interest rates. This is where we're heading with so much government debt, with cost of living going up, inflation going out of control. The Reserve Bank really had no choice but to go for a steep rise in interest rates, did it? It really should have been increasing interest rates earlier.
Well, obviously, Chris, the Reserve Bank is an independent body and it's made its decision today. And this is a difficult day for some 3.5 million Australians who have a mortgage. We know that this is going to add, on average, about $200 per month to the average mortgage. But the challenge now for Labor, and of course, we're seeing what Labor will do as we head towards the budget, is how it will contain its spending. The key to higher interest rates and inflation and controlling interest rates and controlling inflation is containing spending, putting the budget on a proper footing. And already, Chris, we're seeing some indicators that Labor is not prepared to do this. They won't cap the tax to GDP rate at 23.9%. So that indicates that perhaps taxes are going up in this budget. But, you know, basically Labor is now in the spotlight. It promised a better future for all Australians, but so far the indicators are not too good, Chris.
Let's just have a look at what the Treasurer, Jim Chalmers, had to say today.
Well, this is really tough news for Australian homeowners who are already facing skyrocketing costs of living in the form of spiking energy prices and higher prices for groceries as well. Australians expected higher interest rates today, but that doesn't make this news any less difficult for them.
Yeah, indeed. As you say, the real pressure is to keep government spending low, and we do have a budget. Labor has promised a budget later this year, in October, November this year. So would you fear that tax increases might be on the list as well?
Well, I do fear that, and I think there's a very good basis for that. We also, of course, know that Labor has promised an extra $18.3 billion in spending. There's another $45 billion off budget. So there is some genuine concern, certainly, Chris, about Labor's plans towards this budget. And, you know, Labor has a very strong track record of higher taxes and higher spending. But as I say, the refusal of Labor to commit to the tax to GDP cap of 23.9% does certainly indicate that Labor is planning to hike up taxes, and that's not good for any Australian.
Now, Anthony Albanese is on his way back from Indonesia tonight. While he was in Indonesia, he didn't want to talk about interest rates, but he did want to talk about the relationship between Australia and Indonesia. Here's some of what he had to say.
I plan to return to Indonesia as Prime Minister often because of the importance of this diverse and beautiful country. As a neighbour, as a friend, as a matter of priority.
Plenty of domestic challenges to deal with when he gets home, Sarah, but he's done well in Indonesia, hasn't he? I mean, really, on foreign policy so far, Tokyo, what's happened in the Pacific and what he's said and done in Indonesia, it's hard to fault Labor's approach to foreign policy so far.
Well, we have a very strong history of a bipartisan position on most issues of foreign policy, and certainly we have a very, very strong relationship with Indonesia. Very important to build on that relationship, Chris. We, of course, have signed the free trade agreement with Indonesia. Maurice Payne and Peter Dutton were there last year signing a number of other memorandums of understanding on defence, on cybersecurity, and so I do hope and trust that the new Prime Minister will continue to build on our hard work.
All right, we haven't got a lot of time to talk about your communications portfolio, and you, of course, are just getting your feet under the desk, but I'm intrigued to know whether you see tackling ABC bias as a core issue for the coalition and your portfolio in the months and years to come?
Well, Chris, I'm absolutely delighted to take on this responsibility. And of course, it covers a whole range of issues, whether it's mobile reception, whether it's broadband, media regulation, and including our public broadcasters. Let me just say that I'm really proud of the work of our government over 9 years. When we came into government, Chris, there was not one mobile tower fixed. Only 51,000 homes had the NBN. So we've absolutely transformed our digital economy. And I am, as you know, a great believer in public broadcasting, a great supporter. And I do want to see the ABC and SBS be its very, very best. We provided more than $4 billion over 3 years to support our public broadcasters. And yes, I think there is a case for some higher standards, but I will get my feet under the desk. I will, of course, be meeting with the SBS and the ABC and all other media players, and I look forward to having more to say in this space.
Well, we'll talk to you about that further in the future too, Senator. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, great to talk to you, Chris.